All right, so she began to do something that I actually noticed a pattern with her where, she had clearly experienced a lot of trauma, a lot of heartache, a lot of things happen. Life, was you definitely trying her. But she would always begin to talk about nobody after mention this is so important. So I don't want to make mention of race, but she was Negro. So I guess I'm still making mention of race. But I have my perspective about how irrelevant that has become to me. Just because it's all spiritual. But nobody would show her compassion. And so when she would talk about different things, and she wouldn't go on sessions where she would talk about, like, I've been through this, I've been through that, I've been through that, but it would come up and she would testify, usually when she was testifying to God's goodness and how God was keeping her, covering her, protecting her, restoring her, healing her, in spite of, it would always be like crickets, where when anybody else would make mention of the things that they had been, and not to like compare traumas and say, oh, well, this one is worthy of this, or anything like that, but there was always those responses where there would be this support and positive reinforcement and empathy. But anytime she would make mention of anything and these horrible things that she had experienced, nobody would say a word. And usually there would be responses in the comments, in like the meeting comments or whatever. Nobody would say anything, nothing. So it would be crickets. And then also it got to a point where she would talk about how she was not worthy of empathy and compassion, like where she would say, I know I don't, need to whine and complain, and I know, it's gonna be hard, and she would just begin to go into agreement with the fact, with not being shown compassion, which she is entitled to be shown compassion. We all are. um so those things happen, but have been happening all along, throughout all of this. So then when I had my time where now I was being persecuted the same way so many others had, so many, a couple more times, like I think I skipped the next meeting and then I attended the next one, and there would be mention of that incident, that conversation that we had all had, because mind you, this happened in front of, the group, and it would always be a mixed bag of people who were there for deliverance and to pray and to join in the ministry and things like that. And it would always, that incident would get brought up. So it got brought up at least two more times, where it just randomly making mention, and then kind of just like this waiting to see, that thing, that similar treatment, I'll call it, to what I made mention of with the purple shoes, the pink shoes, and the video about food. The food channel, I think, is what I called it. It would be that, where it would just be like, kind of like waiting to see and like look. But I just ignored him, and I was just like, Holy Spirit, can I go now? Like, am I done here? Um, and so one of the other things that the Holy Spirit had told me, was don't give him any money. Don't give them any money at all. And there was there was a little bit of focus on that, like, sowing into the ministry. And I'm not a big fan of that, just because the Holy Spirit is going to lead and guide. Other spirits might try to lead and guide too, but the Holy Spirit is going to lead and guide. And I don't think that people who are called by God are supposed to ask people for money. because God provides. So what you asking people for money for? Like you tell God what your needs are, and even then He already knows anyway. But you tell God, I need money for this, and then the Holy Spirit guides. God provides. We don't. Anyway, so now, so I'm still attending church number 7. So I'm at church number 7. Oh gosh, really. So one of the things that I kept having to like, that I have been avoiding, and it's something that I'm going to address in prayer. But my great aunt had attended this church, and she had started a ministry there. And like when I got there, like one of those times, I was like, did somebody do some sort of witchcraft to cause what happened to her to happen to her? And I just felt it in my spirit, and I didn't ask or lean into it or anything like that. But it was something that just kind of like, it always had me like leaning back and just looking, because I'm like, because what happened to her, it was like, it was very, very bizarre. It wasn't like a super duper freak accident, but it definitely seemed like witchcraft. And when I went to that church, it just kept sitting on me. So anyway, I noticed the pastor of the church began repeating the accusations. So first I went to a Bible study session, and it had that same smell like the bathroom, or like death, or like both, or something like that. And it was just like this weird, like, people noticing a new face, but not saying anything. And just kind of like a, what's she doing here, but not like in a like scared or something, like just something weird taking over. But then, as the sessions went on, he started like repeating the accusations that were coming from those who were operating in a spirit of witchcraft at that time. And it was that like, oh, trying to make me seem like I was Jezebelic, but I'm not. In like a lot of like gesturing and things like that, and those same things where I'm just like, okay, well, purple shoes, pink shoes, Food Channel thing happening, where I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to agree, but I'm gonna make a mental note that is goings on here. And I just got to wondering, like, okay, what spirit is influencing here? So he made mention a couple more times, and that Jezebelic thing was getting thrown something serious. But I'm like hitting it with a baseball bat, because I'm just like, under no circumstances. So I prayed about it on the way home, but there was a couple of things that had occurred with that was in alignment with the purple shoes, pink shoes, Food Channel, but it was more to the effect of making reference to witchcraft, where he's like mentioning randomly, don't get involved with Freemasons, during one sermon. And then another sermon is like, yeah, spiritual, warfare is real. But there's no digging into it. It's always just a like fleeting comment that's made. And around that time, I started praying about, I think I prayed about it, or I just felt in my spirit where I'm just like, these sermons are fluffy, and they are the itching ears bit, where it's just like, this isn't, this church is under immense attack, and these sermons are ineffective. Like, they're effective for like addressing a little bit of, having the right perspective and developing a surface level relationship with God, but it's not speaking to what people are experiencing. Having joined the prayer ministry, months later, and now still being somewhat part of it, now I'm just like, oh, this church is under attack. And I'm just like, yeah, no, them sermons wasn't it at all. like completely ineffective, like a waste of time. Um, for building the church up so that they could defend themselves, I will say. But he kept with the Jezebel thing, and I'm just like, mm-mm. And so I had been praying about that, and I think I had prayed about like the surface level prayers as well. And so it was like, one little word about, oh, spiritual warfare is real, and then that was it, that kind of thing. But the Jezebel thing happened. I prayed about it on the way home from Bible study one night. I see a woman that looks like his wife in my dreams that same night, but she's slithering around low on the floor. So I know it's a demon because of but she asked me, could she come in? It's like, nah, you can't. And then like maybe the next day or so is when that email went out about how the board had decided that they needed to step down. So of course in the morning I canceled the prayer and I prayed against whatever witchcraft that was. And then that's when it was just like, they've been asked to step down, and I'm like, So now we're at church number 8, and that's the church that I've been visiting now, and it's the same thing. People looking at phones and speaking curses and making accusations in the lobby and that whole bit. And the same thing where it's just like the purple shoes, pink shoes, food channel references, but I'm just kind of sitting and looking and waiting for God to guide me. So these are some of the things that it is that I've experienced, and as you can tell, there's patterns. I hope it was concise enough for you to identify the patterns, and I hope this brings validation to some.